new. They want to speed things up, get out in transition. We talk a lot about the Timberwolves, right? Their perfect record in these playoffs, and rightfully so. But how about Oklahoma City? Their defense helped the top-seeded Thunder win by a total of 85 points across their first 5 games. That is the 4th largest point differential through 5 playoff games for any team over the last 15 years. It's kind of tricky when you announce MVP well into the second round of the postseason because it is a regular season award. That being said, Stephen A., SGA came second in MVP voting, but do you think the voters got it right?
I do not. I believe that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should have been the league MVP. I've said that. I have a vote. That's who I voted for. This is a young man, age 25, I believe. This man averaged 30. Okay? 3rd in the league in scoring. At least, how many? 50-plus games he scored over 30. This man led the league, top of the league average in steals with De'Aaron Fox. They got the 2nd youngest squad in the NBA, if I remember correctly. And they still got the #1 overall seed with 57 wins. When you consider the youth, not just his, but that of his teammates, as well as their coach, the youth, nevertheless, the togetherness, the way that they played, how effective he played, what he brought to the table, and you captured the #1 seed, and you consider the other great guards in the conference, the Luka Doncic, the Kyrie Irvings of the world, the Anthony Edwards of the world, and others, and you see what this brother brought to the table. Nikola Jokic is sensational. We know what a sensational producer he is. I'm not taking anything away from him. Props to him. I'm happy for him. But we should be talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the league MVP right now. I definitely believe he deserved this award.
Each one of these guys has a similar resume. I ain't gonna argue against not 1 second anything Stephen A. said about SGA. I can also build the same resume for Joker. We know because a lot of voters, most of that. I can build it for, if you noticed, Anthony Edwards got 1 second place vote.
Who could that have belonged to?
Huh?
Ding,
One.
ding, ding, ding.
1 second place vote. You think I can't build a case, a resume for Anthony Edwards? Of course I can. Whose team was without the one All-Star they had previously, Cat, for like 19 games and was something like 13-6 without him. So Anthony Edwards did something, not to mention, convinced his team they better be almost afraid not to follow him. So you can vote, you can make the case for him, you can make it for Joker, you can make it for SGA.
Right.
You can make it for any of them. And so, like, I'm not going to argue. Stephen A. says we're talking about him right now. Well, he has earned all of that. It doesn't mean he's earned it above Joker or above Anthony Edwards for me.
Yeah, that was a pretty good argument Stephen A. made. That was compelling. I can see why you voted for him. And he's coming, right? This guy's coming. I still think Jokic deserved it. Doesn't mean anybody else didn't, but Jokic was great this year. You know what's fascinating is, whether it's Shai Gilgeous or Anthony Edwards, we're looking at the future of the NBA. And future MVPs. And you know what I love? They're doing it in the playoffs, right? They're doing it. Anthony Edwards isn't intimidated by the defending champs.
Not at all.
He doesn't look intimidated at all. And Shai, you're right, Stephen A., carrying that young team. But I would say this, and I'm curious your reaction. In a series right now, if you said you get to take a first pick of a player in a series versus either one of you, I'd still take Jokic first. I just think he impacts the game more.
But
You're
I think
say something different, I imagine.
That piece is, it is a regular season award, but I do think how a player plays in the playoffs a year before, that enters the voter bias mind,
then
whether
that
or not it should.
Shai.
Exactly, so that's for next year.
It will next year, but you won this year.
But it shouldn't. As a voter, I'm telling you right now, all I took into consideration is what I saw him do during the regular season. I didn't take into account last year's postseason. This is what the award is about. That's the criteria. That's what I judged on.
The Thunder's still the #1 seed. We're talking about the Timberwolves a whole lot as being the scariest team in the West. Are they overlooked?
OKC?
Yep.
A little bit.
Okay.
But only because of their absence of girth. They have height, they have athleticism, they have shooters, they have a superstar, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They have depth. The question is, do you have the girth? I don't think they have. They're a bit thin, and that's what you think you take
You're 100% right, but it's the absence of exposure. The country still hasn't seen Oklahoma City yet. They've just seen Minnesota because they were we mentioned last season, in the postseason, they pushed Denver. We got a little bit more of Minnesota, even though Anthony Edwards is a completely different player now than he was last year. But Oklahoma City, people don't know who J-Dub is.
They're about to.
They're about to.
If they don't know, now they know.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. NBA of the year.